He once said he'd take a bullet for the president, but in court today, Donald Trump's one-time long-standing personal lawyer has possibly inflicted maximum damage on his former client. In an unexpected appearance before a federal judge in Manhattan this morning, Michael Cohen admitted misleading lawmakers about a Trump real estate project in Moscow. In other words, he lied to Congress. Today, a filing from Donald Trump's nemesis, special counsel Robert Mueller, revealed that whereas Cohen told Congress last summer that discussions about a possible plan to build a skyscraper hotel in the Russian capital ended in January 2016, they actually continued as late as approximately June 2016. And this, the criminal complaint said, Cohen well knew. June 2016 was the month of the legendary Trump Tower meeting between campaign officials and a Kremlin-connected lawyer, where material detrimental to Hillary Clinton was discussed. All this is an issue for Trump because it contradicts the president's insistence that he had no financial ties to Russia, an assertion he frequently made when questioned about his praise of Vladimir Putin and about his efforts to improve US-Russia relations. Up till now, Michael Cohen has been tangential to the Mueller investigation into Trump's links to Russia, but this plea agreement changes all that. Now he faces a fresh barrage from the president, who fired this parting shot as he headed off to Argentina.
I think he's a weak person and not a very smart person. What he's trying to do is end, and it's very simple. He's got himself a big prison sentence, and he's trying to get a much lesser prison sentence by making up a story.
Well, I'm joined now from San Diego by Harry Litman, a former U.S. attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania and former Department of Justice official. And Scottie Nell Hughes, a presenter on RT America, joins us from the G20 Summit in Buenos Aires. Good evening to both of you. Harry Litman, first of all, do you think the timing of Michael Cohen's appearance was procedural or political?
The timing was procedural? I didn't pick that up. I'm sorry.
I was wondering if the timing was straightforwardly procedural, or was it actually tinged with politics?
I understand. Yes. Well, it is possibly tinged with politics. We know that there's been a lot of activity involving Russian entities all week long. Manafort, Corsi, Stone, and these all follow the revelation of the Manafort plea agreements kind of demolishing. Mm-hmm. And so and also, of course, the responses to questions from Mueller by the special counsel. So it seems possible that he had them in hand before he unrolled an indictment that he really could have brought last week, the week before, or the week before that.
So, Scottie Nell Hughes, you are traveling with the president of the G20. You know, we heard before he left this morning, he made no mention of cancelling any meeting with Vladimir Putin. Then, hey presto, he gets to Buenos Aires and suddenly there is no meeting with Vladimir Putin. Tell me about the mood music. What's his demeanor been like today?
Well, that's the exact question right now. They had just released, the White House had just released President Trump's schedule. He had told reporters an hour before that the meeting was on. Yeah. And then 30 minutes later, you get this tweet that goes out. Even more interesting, the Kremlin found out about the canceled meeting via Donald Trump's tweet. So that shows something shook him up and made him decide that he needed to cancel this meeting.
But it's extraordinary, isn't it? Because there you have the leader of the Western world cancelling a meeting with Vladimir Putin because he's worried about what Michael Cohen said in court. How statesmanlike do you think?
Well, that's the thing. That's not even about being a statesman. It's about being dangerous. If that's how we're going to start saying is that we're going to let events back at home that really have nothing to do. This is about Michael Cohen and Michael Cohen's potential going to jail and his lying to Congress, which he needs to be held accountable for. If that's going to affect international relations and diplomacy, then that's actually a very dangerous step that this has caused this past day.
Well, Harry Litman, I mean, can you assess the danger to Trump? Obviously, we need to see, we haven't seen any evidence from Michael Cohen that indeed Trump was, during his presidential campaign, still in discussions, or his people were still in discussions with Russia over this skyscraper or whatever. The fact of that isn't as bad as whether he lied to Mueller about it, which, if indeed he did, is dangerous for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's spurious to actually try to cordon this off from Trump himself. This was, as you said, the lies at a time when he was joined at the hip with Trump, and the lies were done because of his perception of Trump's interests. And remember, it was Trump himself during the campaign who was repeatedly insisting. So Trump himself and the campaign felt it was an imperative to let the American people think that falsely, that there were no ongoing dealings with Russia. And this was a considered two-page written document that was a tissue of lies, certainly coordinated with the Trump campaign itself. So the notion that this is just Cohen on a frolic and detour, I think, is untenable.
So tell me, in terms of the progress of the Mueller investigation, Scottie Nell Hughes, do you think with the Democrats about to take the House, there's a bit more edge to what's going on?
Oh, well, there's no doubt. The Democrats have charged the second they become in power, they're just going to paper the White House with subpoenas. The question is, how does that resonate with the American public? Does that actually help the situation going on? And considering Mueller himself has not released, and so everybody's speculating what is in this report, it's very odd for anybody to be able to predict whether it's going to be for or it's actually going to, it's going to demonize Trump even more. I think the real question we have to decide is here, the timing of it. And the bigger issue right now, like you said, they were joined at the hip, but not just for the campaign. For the last 10 years of business. I think the more concerning part right now is how much more does the fix-it man for Donald Trump know about, besides the idea of doing business with Russia, but what other issues and skeletons can actually he disclose if it's going to save his own hide from going to jail?
Well, I want to come on a minute to talk a bit more what you're saying about the voters, what actually cuts with the voters. But before I do that, you have a theory that somehow, in a way, there's a pardon possibility going on here. What did you mean by that? Earlier, you told our researcher that you thought that what actually Cohen might be after was to Trump to pardon him. I explain the logic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one more time. Explain the logic behind why this was happening.
No, why you think there's a possibility this is about a pardon?
Well, that was it. The whole thing in all of this is from the very beginning, Cohen was kind of actually looking for a pardon. In fact, that's what all of them, Manafort, all of them have been trying to do, was to get the attention. And that's usually how it's worked. These guys go into the spotlight and they make these big deals, and the president goes in and gives them the attention. You've seen it with senators. Now I guess you're going to see it with people looking for pardons. Now that friendship, the bromance is completely over between Cohen and Trump. So now Cohen's going, you know what? I know a lot of secrets about you, Donald Trump, and I'm going to start revealing them. So you better find some way to appease me and make me not be the fall guy for everything that's happened.
Harry Litman, we know that actually very little cuts through with his base. In fact, the only time it's really cut through with his base was he wasn't fast enough to go to California and get federal funds for the disaster, the fire disaster there. You know, what will his base be making of all this? Will they care one jot?
Right. It's been the big question for over a year, really. I mean, Mueller proceeds on what, by all accounts, is an extremely effective and comprehensive probe, but with each revelation seeming greater than the last and well beyond, for example, anything we learned in Watergate, you have a shrug of the shoulders, at least from the 42% that is Trump's knife edge and on which he's been able to maintain power, especially because to date the Republican Senate has shown no signs of abandoning him. There is a general sense, I think, in the country that yes, he may well have committed serious crimes, but nevertheless he has a firewall in the Senate, and it's not likely he'll be indicted in the courts. So, and the political, there are two really different sides here, the political and the legal, and they play out differently.
Thank you both very much indeed for joining us.